Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate 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 Vasudevaya.
Reading from Srimad-Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 1, Text 2. Dharma projita kaitabotra paramo nirmat saranam satam vedyam vastavam atra vastu shivadam tapotrayon mulanam Srimad-Bhagavate Mahamuni Krite Kim Va Paredishvaraha Sadyo Hirdi Avarudhyatetra Kritibi Shushrubhi Stakshanat. Translation. Completely rejecting all religious activities which are materially motivated, this Bhagavata Puran propounds the highest truth, which is understandable by those devotees who are fully pure in heart. The highest truth is reality distinguished from illusion for the welfare of all. Such truth uproots the threefold miseries. This beautiful Bhagavatam compiled by the great sage Vyasadeva in his maturity is sufficient in itself for God realization. What is the need of any other scripture? As soon as one attentively and submissively hears the message of Bhagavatam, by this culture of knowledge, the Supreme Lord is established within his heart. Continuing with the purport, today covering fourth paragraph 1. The impersonal aspect of the Absolute Truth is not the highest. Above the impersonal feature is the Paramatma feature, and above this is the personal feature of the Absolute Truth, or Bhagavan. Srimad-Bhagavatam gives information about the Absolute Truth in his personal feature. It is higher than impersonalist literatures and higher than the Jnana Kanda division of the Vedas. It is even higher than the Karma Kanda division and even higher than the Upasana Kanda division, because it recommends the worship of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Sri Krishna. In the Karma Kanda, there is competition to reach heavenly planets for better sense gratification, and there is similar competition in the Jnana Kanda and the Upasana Kanda. The Srimad-Bhagavatam is superior to all of these because it aims at the Supreme Truth, which is the substance or the root of all categories. From Srimad-Bhagavatam one can come to know the substance as well as the categories. The substance is the Absolute Truth, the Supreme Lord, and all emanations are relative forms of energy. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Shrimate. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschata Deshatharine. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasani Gaur Bhaktivinoda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. This fourth paragraph of the purport is discussing the personal aspect of the Absolute Truth, Satyam. Not all the parts of the Shastra are discussing this personal aspect. The Jiva Bhuta, conditioned souls, are on different levels of spiritual evolution. What is their conception of this material world, conception of God and of themselves? That is different for all of them because they are on different level of spirituality. So they have different realizations. Who is the Absolute? Who am I? Am I a body? Am I a lump of stone? Am I a non-entity? So because of this we have different species, animal kingdom and human. In animal kingdom, the jiva, animal, plant, whatever, non-human species, the jiva is evolving through different living entities. And when that one dies, he takes a higher one and a higher one. In third canto Srimad-Bhagavatam, Lord Kapila gives the hierarchy of different living entities. And from that we understand, for example, that plant life, from that follows unicellular organisms, then amphibious, reptile, mammal, and within humans also, there are levels. So that is given. There are different levels of realization. And so, everyone understands things differently. For some people, their realization of God or supreme transcendence is food. That is animal level. Who is supreme? The one who is feeding him. That person is supreme. Who is feeding the animal? He is supreme. Or who he fears. The one who he fears. That person is supreme to him. So it depends on the level of spiritual realization. What is their idea? So Bhagavad Gita gives different yoga systems, chapter 1 to 6, and it's known as yoga ladder. It is explaining how the jiva at different levels is engaging with transcendence in different ways. Through karma, through jnana, dhyana, etc. And each yoga system is higher than the other. As Prabhupada said, they are not different paths. They are all the same path but different levels. So the yoga ladder is just showing how the jiva may take many lives or one life to gradually come to this status of bhakti. So bhakti is supposed to be the highest according to that last verse in chapter 1 to 6. Last verse of chapter 6, that is explaining the last rung of the yoga ladder. Otherwise, from the beginning, it's explaining how the jiva is coming up gradually. It begins with that verse, Saha Yajna Praja Sishtva, that Vishnu put the living entities in this world and told them, now do yajna to be happy. That's all. Do yajna to be happy, to be prosperous, and get liberation at the end. But that is beginning of karma kand, then karma yoga, jnana yoga. Jiva in the beginning is on animal level. Then when he comes through Shastra, okay, that is human level. And then he understands that he has to take shelter of Shastric injunction just to be happy through yajna. So just to be happy by doing yajna, every system of yajna, he will get his whatever he needs from nature. Everything will come. Then this is karma kanda portion. So he continues to do that. He does yajna, then he enjoys, he gets what he wants, then he goes to the heavenly planets. Then he comes down, and again he does yajna, goes to heavenly planets, enjoys, even in this material world, he enjoys by doing yajna. After some time he's thinking that I'm fed up of this material enjoyment. What is the point? Why am I here? He starts to question. So then he may ask the pujari, or he may look at the Vedas and say, who is the person who's controlling this? Or who is the entity? So then he gets to know there's a supreme entity. And there's a supreme entity or energy which is controlling all these things, by which I am being judged and going to heavenly planets and coming back down. So then he gets knowledge of some transcendental goal beyond this material enjoyment. So then he begins karma yoga, beyond karma kanda. So karma yoga means that he does his karma. Before he was doing his karma for sense gratification. He said, if I do my duty, I'll get supreme benefit. And this is in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2, text 31 to 37. Sukhina Kshatriya Partha Labhante Yudham Midrisham Swarga Dwaram Apavritam. Happy are the Kshatriyas who are able to fight in the war, because through that they will get heavenly delight. That is, Krishna preaches, chapter 2, text 31 to 37. That is on Karma Kand level. But the jiva, when he discovers there's a higher level than this, that I'm not satisfied with this material sense gratification, I want to come out of this cycle. So then he begins karma yoga. Now, before he was doing his karma, that means duties in varnashram, for sense gratification. But now he will do it for a higher goal, liberation. Liberation that is introduced in chapter 2, text 15 for the first time. Try to remember this. Yam hinna vyatantyate purusham purusharshabha sama sukham dukham dhiram samritat kalpate. So that is the verse where Krishna introduces the concept of liberation. Amrit. Amritatvaya kalpate. Who is qualified for that? Sama dukham sukham dhiram. Who is transcendental to happiness and distress. He is eligible for the supreme destination, Amritatvaya, coming out of the cycle. So at that stage, the jiva begins karma yoga. So by doing karma yoga, he gives up the results. He's attached, but he gives a portion of the result, and he's attached to the work. He continues doing karma yoga. After some time, he advances in jnana and vairagya. So he gets to get deeper realization of this entity, the supreme entity. And so after some time he thinks, I'll give up all my result. He'll do karma and give up all the result of his karma. So when that happens, he gets much more advanced. And then he begins, and then he asks himself, now I am giving up all results, so why am I working? What's the point of working if I give up everything? So he stops working. Then he becomes a jnani. Jnana yoga. So in jnana yoga, his component of jnana and vairagya has increased so much. So he's not working anymore. Now he's simply meditating on the Supreme. Meditating, thinking about it, and studying knowledge to know the Supreme. Mostly they'll study Upanishads. They study Upanishads and Vedanta, and try to conceive of what is the Supreme through that knowledge, through their mental, their own intellectual prowess. But of course, God cannot be fully revealed by that. But anyway, that is their level of spiritual advancement. So then they do jnana yoga, giving up result of their work. They meditate on the Supreme. And when that goes on and on, this meditation, then two things can happen. Actually, from karmakand level, some of them may go to Paramatma, yogi level. So on the level of yoga, they are meditating on Paramatma. Because through their knowledge, they understand that the Supreme is within me. So they begin to worship Him as Paramatma until they see Him. They may reach the stage of seeing the Super Soul. That is one branch. Another branch is the jnana level. The jnana level that they meditate on the Supreme till the knowledge is revealed much more. So what will happen? That if they continue to advance in their practice, then bhakti is born. Because the jnana vairagya increases to such extent that jnana reveals the Supreme. When the Supreme is revealed, then they take up bhakti. So this is the progression from the beginning of the ladder to the top. Yoga ladder, it's known as. So through the yoga ladder, we understand the jiva spiritual evolution, and that bhakti is the highest. So that yoga ladder is covered in chapter 1 to 6 and concludes with that highest level of yoga. So there are different religious systems, and the advancement of that religious system depends on degree of the manifestation of the absolute truth. How much is the Supreme manifest? Can we see Him? Can we know Him and Him? Is it Him or her or it? That knowledge is there in the religious system. So how much advanced is it? Is how much we are able to know the Supreme. That's what. Because what is religion? To know God, to love Him and serve Him. So how much do we know God? Not much. That's not advanced system. Do we know God a lot? Yes, a lot. Okay, that's advanced system. Because we will serve God, but you really cannot serve someone unless you know them very well. We want to know about that person. Who is that person I'm going to work for? Or, before matrimony, who's the person we're going to marry? Or who is the person I'm going to work for in the job? And that knowledge has to be known, otherwise we will not be motivated. We have to know who's this, I have to know the person, who is it. Similarly, we want to worship God, we want to practice religion. How much do we know about Him? How much we know about the Supreme? And if we don't know, then we will not be much motivated. The more we know, the more bhakti is born. As Krishna says in Gita in many places. For example, chapter 10, text 8, Krishna says that one who understands that everything emanates from me, Buddha Bhava Samanvita, he worships with full bhava, with his full being, his full self, full of knowledge, emotion. Buddha Bhava Samanvita. So, more we know about Krishna, more we will serve Him. But here we didn't say Krishna yet. Religious systems, the degree of advancement depends on how much God is manifest. So, if we know God much more, then we can serve much more. If we don't, we will not be motivated at all. So in the Srimad-Bhagavatam, when they're speaking about that substance, it's known as Advayam, non-dual substance. Non-dual means not two. There is only one substance like that. Advayam, Vadanti Tatatavidas, Tattvam Yajnanam Advayam, Brahmeti Paramatmeti Bhagavan iti Shabdyate. That Supreme is known in three features. Learned transcendentalists, they Tattvam Yajnanam Advayam, those who have knowledge of the Supreme, the non-dual substance, they understand that He manifests in three features. Three features, that is Brahmeti Paramatmeti Bhagavan iti Shabdyate. In Brahman, Paramatma, and as a personality. Supreme is an all-pervading energy, pervading everything. Supreme is also located in our heart, and we are very close to Him. Supreme is also a personality. So, people who don't have that knowledge, they say that their system is the only way. God is a light, no, God is energy, no, God is Paramatma. No, they don't understand that actually God is all three. He has taken all three versions, all three systems. In the purport of this verse, it says, therefore Brahman, Paramatma and Bhagavan are qualitatively one and the same. Those three features of the Supreme are one and the same. The same substance is realized as impersonal Brahman by students of Upanishads. If you study Upanishads, they don't mention personality much. There are some parts, Gopal Tapani Upanishad, but generally they speak about Supreme, the impersonal aspect. Not that the Supreme is impersonal, but they speak about that aspect. Upanishads. Okay, then localized Paramatma, also known as Hiranyagarbhas or yogis. They worship the Lord in that form as a Paramatma through their Shastras. And Bhagavan. So the Bhaktas realize Supreme as Bhagavan, and the yogis as Paramatma, and the Jnanis as impersonal, all-pervading energy. This verse lists three of them, Brahman, Paramatma and Bhagavan, all three. And it says, Bhagavan comes third out of all of them. Bhagavan is third. So Prabhupada says here that, in other words, Bhagavan or personality of Godhead is the last word of the absolute truth. In other words, how is that? How is he concluding? Actually, we see the verse, it doesn't say that. But in the verse, it's given sequentially, Brahman, Paramatma, Bhagavan. So Prabhupada says that Bhagavan is highest because he contains all the previous ones. He's the highest and he's the last word of the absolute truth. There is no other higher form, aspect of absolute truth than Bhagavan. So in Bhagavan, realization is taken as Param Satyam, as mentioned in text 1. Param Satyam Dhimahi. And here in this verse, Prabhupada says clearly in the purport of this verse, 4th paragraph, the impersonal aspect of the absolute truth is not the highest. Above the impersonal feature is the Paramatma feature. Above this is the impersonal feature of the absolute truth of Bhagavan. So we don't argue. Some say Supreme is energy, Supreme is Paramatma. We don't argue. Yes, that is their realization. Supreme is having that form, all pervading. But there are higher levels of realization, and our desire is that people reach a higher level of realization. That's our desire, because people, when they reach a higher level of realization of God, then they're able to serve Him, fully engage in His service. Bhagavan realization has all three, Bhagavan, Paramatma and Brahman, Paramatma and Bhagavan are contained in Bhagavan. One who realizes Brahman realizes the Sat aspect. He comes out of the cycle of birth and death. But he doesn't have Gyan about himself fully and about God. Brahman, Paramatma realization means he has Sat and Chit. Sat and Chit. Chit means he has knowledge. So the Supreme, they see as having eternality and full knowledge. And so they attain that. They attain eternality and knowledge of themselves, more knowledge of themselves as a soul. But one who realizes Bhagavan attains eternality and knowledge and happiness. And so he will not again fall into the clutches of Maya. The other two can fall because Jiva has to be happy, Anand, and they will not get that in Brahman realization or Paramatma. In Brahman realization, there is some kind of happiness, as it says in Bhagavad Gita. Which verse? Yeah. Brahmabhuta Prasanatma. We become happy in Brahmabhuta level. Happy because there is no Maya, basically, no guna. That's our happiness. But real happiness is when we realize God. When we realize God, Bhagavan in feature, then we become happy. So that happiness stops us from getting an illusion or coming back to the material platform. So therefore it's highest, because we reach the highest position and we are worshipping the highest manifestation of God. So one who sees the Supreme as Supreme Absolute Truth, Param Satyam, is the highest spiritualist. Prabhupada called him Vedantist. Vedanta means the conclusion of Veda. Veda means knowledge. What is the conclusion of knowledge? All knowledge. What is the final conclusion? Final conclusion of all knowledge is understanding about Bhagavan, Supreme Personality of Godhead. So if we understand Bhagavan, then we are the highest Vedantists. So Prabhupada said, chanters of Hare Krishna are the highest Vedantists. And he pointed at one child, small child. Who's the Supreme Personality of Godhead? Krishna. Okay, so that child is the highest Vedantist, Prabhupada would say. People are studying Vedanta, but this is the highest. So Vedanta is realized, in proper study of Vedanta is realized by the Bhakta, who understands the Supreme and begins to serve Him. Because knowing God means serving. If you really know Krishna, then we'll begin to serve Him. So that is the Vedanta. And not what people are studying as Vedanta as some impersonal entity, all-pervading. That's not the highest realization of Vedanta. A common example to understand Brahman, Paramatma and Bhagavan, Prabhupada gave different examples. One is the parrot and the tree. No, let's talk about the mountain. So from far away, mountain looks blue, blackish, greenish. So if three people are going towards the mountain, and one sees the mountain, says, I know what a mountain is. It's just a mass of blue and black. Then he goes away. He realized what's a mountain, but not fully. Then the second person goes to the mountain and comes right till the mountain. He says, no, there are trees, lakes, rivers, rocks. I know what a mountain is. Then he goes away. Okay, he has a better understanding. But the third one enters into the mountain and actually sees the animals and variegatedness. He sees the tree branches and everything. And so he says, I know what the mountain is. Actually, he knows more. Another analogy Prabhupada gave was the sun, sunlight and sun god. So he said that the sunlight, if someone sees a sunlight and says, I know the sun, yes, it's true, but it's not fully true. But if someone says, I have seen the sun globe, and so I know what the sunlight is, I know what the sun is. Yes, he's more accurate than the person who just saw the sunlight. But third person goes into the sun globe and sees Surya Bhagavan himself. So he has the highest knowledge. All three have knowledge, but he has the highest knowledge. So in that way, one who sees Brahman, he knows a supreme absolute truth to an extent. One who sees Paramatma knows to a higher extent. And one who knows Bhagavan, he is seen to an even higher extent. So all three know about God, but one is highest. So in that way here, it's mentioned that the highest realization of Bhagavan is knowing a high manifestation, realization of God, or supreme absolute truth is knowing his feature as Bhagavan. That is the highest. Now in the purport, Prabhupada says that Srimad-Bhagavatam gives information about the absolute truth in his personal feature. It is higher than the impersonal feature and higher than the Jnana Kand and Upasana Kand and Karma Kand. So now Prabhupada is saying Srimad-Bhagavatam gives knowledge of that highest feature, Bhagavan. Therefore, Bhagavatam is highest. Because we already concluded Bhagavan is highest manifestation, realization of God. Bhagavatam is giving knowledge of that. So Bhagavatam is the highest text. Where else can we get knowledge of Bhagavan? How many Shastras can we quote where directly they're speaking about Bhagavan? Very rare. It's rare. Therefore we understand how Srimad-Bhagavatam is so great, because it's speaking about the highest feature of the highest realization of absolute truth. But again, as we see, it's not given immediately. Because beginning of Srimad-Bhagavatam discusses material energy, how the material world is created. What is material energy? Lord Kapila gives knowledge about knowledge of material energy, fruitive activities, karma. That we have to understand first, because we are conditioned beings. Jiva Bhuta, trapped in material energy. So we have to understand material energy first. So this is given. And then after that comes higher knowledge, the energies of God. And then God himself, higher knowledge comes. So we can see, because the subject matter of Srimad Bhagavatam is the highest, therefore this is the highest Shastra. And here in the purport it says somewhere that it aims at the root. Yeah, it says here, the Srimad Bhagavatam is superior to all these because it aims at the supreme truth, which is the substance or the root of all categories. The root. Normally we use this word root for plants. For plants. Mool. The Sanskrit word is mool. So mool means root, and mool also means the principal manifestation. The thing from which everything comes out. So there's a verse in Srimad Bhagavatam explaining supreme truth as a root. Yata taror mula nishechanena ripyanti tat skanda bhujopashakha prana parhana chayatendriyanam tata sarva arhanam achyutteja. There it's explained that as the root of a tree, as watering the root of a tree satisfies the branch, the twigs and the leaves and everything, So it says prano and also prano pahara chayatendriyanam, as giving food to the stomach satisfies all the senses and body. Tata sarva arhanam achyuteja arhanam. Therefore, worshipping all the demigod, everyone is worshipped. When we worship Achyuta, Krishna, Achyuteja, worship of Krishna satisfies all the demigods. Prabhupada would say, no, devotee is liked by everyone. He is dear to everyone. Demigods, people, everyone, no one can hate. So you may say, no, then why do they stop us? Why do they attack us when we do Harinam? When we distribute books, they attack. We satisfy all obligations by being a devotee. That is the statement. That is the meaning of the statement. That one who does devotional service and worships Krishna satisfies all other debts and obligations. So therefore, devotee is dear to everyone because of that. The highest conception of God is Bhagavan. So the highest knowledge is knowledge of Bhagavan. And what is the highest knowledge of Bhagavan? Knowing how to please Him and how to serve Him in detail. And we'll not know that until we know about Him perfectly. If I want to serve someone, I have to know what he likes, what he doesn't like, everything. So Bhagavatam goes in detail. But Bhagavad Gita gives the initial knowledge of God. But to be a devotee, we have to know about God. So in such a detail, scientific detail. As Krishna in 2 verses speaks about tattvataha, in truth, knowing me in truth. Janma karma cha me divyam evam yoveti tattvataha, in truth. So elsewhere he says that. Tattvataha. The proper understanding of God gives bhakti. Deeper understanding of Krishna. I understand, if I really understand Krishna, next step is I want to serve Him. I want to serve. I want to serve Him wholeheartedly, without a gap. No gap. Ahituki, apratihata. Ahituki means without any blockage. No, that means causelessly, without any benefit. And apratihata means without any blockage. No obstacle should. Bhakti does not have, that bhakti that comes will not have any obstacle. That is there, savai pungsam paro dharma yato bhakti radokchade ahituke pratiyata yayatma suprasidati. The highest form of religion, or the highest form of bhakti, samparo dharma, highest form of dharma is by which we can get causeless and uninterrupted devotional service to the Supreme. And such bhakti is yayatma suprasidati, very pleasing when we perform it. It's very pleasing, very happy to perform it. So that is the highest knowledge which will take us to that point. Paro dharma, highest point. And Srimad-Bhagavatam is unrivaled in that way. It's known as, it says, Devanam achyuto yatha, Vaishnavanam yatha shambhu, Purananam idam tatha. As Vishnu is the greatest among all the demigods, as Shambhu is the greatest among all Vaishnavas, so Srimad-Bhagavatam is the greatest among Puranas. And what is faith? Faith means understanding this, that just by practicing bhakti, we can satisfy everything. We can satisfy all obligations and all karma. This is proper faith. Shraddha shabde vishwasa kahe sudadha nishchoy. Krishna karma kritta haile, Krishna bhakti karta haile, sarva karma kritta haile. That faith is understanding Shraddha Shabda. This word Shraddha means by doing bhakti, I satisfy everything. This is the proper understanding of faith. I fulfill all obligation by doing devotional service. So that is faith. And really, who has that faith? Because some are doing bhakti, but we also have to feed people. We also have to educate people. That's important. People don't have education. We have to give free education. Especially to Dhamvasis. People think like that. Other thing, okay, you have to treat the eyes, give the clothes. And there was tsunami here in India recently. And we have to build a house for them and do bhakti and run temples. No, that is not faith. Faith means that I did bhakti, everything is satisfied. Of course, if my neighbor is hungry, then I will feed them. But it's not becoming a primary task in a devotee's life. In Srimad-Bhagavatam is culture, knowledge, politics, everything, religion. It is for supposing to re-establish culture in a theistic way, re-establishing. It's here, it's perfect. By studying, we can derive so much knowledge. Prithu Maharaj, how he was ruling, Yudhishthira Maharaj, how he was ruling, and interactions between different social systems, in financial, all aspects of civilization. Spiritually, we can satisfy everything and establish everything through the method of study of Srimad-Bhagavatam. How to understand Bhagavatam, how to read it. It's such a great book, so many verses. Which one to read first, which one to emphasize, how to know. That is a Gaudiya Vaishnava movement. It's taken Bhagavatam as the main text. Acharyas have come down, beginning with Acharya and Sri Bhagavan, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He read Srimad Bhagavatam, meditated on it, and he lived it and he applied it. This is the greatest Bhagavat, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and we are meant to follow him. We want to follow his example. So in the Gaudiya Vaishnava line, what is the aim? That's a very esoteric topic. Prabhupada says this Krishna conscious movement is meant to take you to Ras Leela. So how will that be done? We have to know God, we have to understand Him, and He is a book, but how to read it, how to understand, how to absorb it? By reading Chaitanya Charitamrita. Gradually we have to emulate Mahaprabhu's mood, how he studied, how he read, and re-establish the whole Krishna-centered life in terms of all aspects of civilization. Bhagavatam is complete, it can do that. Hare Krishna. Any question? No. Srimad-Bhagavatam ki jai.